Welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up in this edition, the US offers rewards to the tune of $20 million for information on 4 leaders of the Islamic State group. This as the group claims responsibility for its first attack on US soil. A long-standing border dispute between Chile and Bolivia is currently being given a hearing here in Europe at The Hague. And boxer Manny Pacquiao is hit with legal proceedings after failing to disclose a shoulder injury ahead of his fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. The US is offering rewards to the tune of $20 million for information leading to the whereabouts of 4 leaders of the Islamic State group. This comes after the militant group claimed their first attack on US soil, a shooting at an event in Texas where cartoons mocking the Prophet Mohammed were exhibited. While police shot dead the 2 gunmen who tried to storm the exhibition, but investigations are ongoing. Authorities fear the militants may have been homegrown, as Luke Trago and Mark Thompson report.
The face of Texas gunman Elton Simpson. The 31-year-old was revealed as living with accomplice Nadir Sufi as federal agents swept down on their Arizona apartment on Monday.
We started hearing banging. It sounded like sledgehammers. I went over to the back window here and looked out. They were out here just wailing on the back door over here, trying to get it open. There were several different guys that came over and were trying to cut into the door.
The pair attacked a Texas art exhibition displaying caricatures of the Prophet Mohammed on Sunday evening. Police killed both men in seconds after they wounded a single security guard at the complex. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility on Tuesday in an audio recording posted online. It's the first time the organisation has taken responsibility for an attack on US soil. They warned it won't be the last.
ونقول لحامية الصليب أمريكا أن القادمات أدهى وأمر ولترون من جنود دولة الإسلام ما يسوءكم بإذن الله وإن غدا لناظره قريب.
Government sources say Simpson had been under surveillance since 2006. The FBI suspected him of wanting to travel to Somalia to fight with jihadists. A judge convicted Simpson of lying to the FBI in 2011, though found insufficient evidence he was involved in international terrorism.
Still in the US, 3 new candidates have thrown their hat into the ring as contenders for the Republican nomination in 2016 presidential elections. Fox News personality Mike Huckabee, who ran unsuccessfully 7 years ago, has announced he's taking another shot at the world's top job. Meanwhile, the former Hewlett-Packard chief executive, Carly Fiorina, is positioning herself as a contender with real-life corporate experience. Conservative Ben Carson is a retired neurosurgeon who entered the political arena 2 years ago. The African-American has voiced strong opposition to President Barack Obama. A long-standing border dispute in South America is currently being given a hearing here in Europe at The Hague. Landlocked Bolivia has lodged a formal complaint against neighbour Chile over access to the sea lost during the Pacific War of the 1880s. Santiago says it will not give ground, as Nicholas Rushworth explains.
La Paz's complaint about sea access is in the hands of the judges at the International Court of Justice. The Bolivian president, Evo Morales, wants the court to force Chile to transfer sovereign rights. The national flag representing the country's maritime claim has been given prominence in the Bolivian capital.
It is our duty to spell out a series of historical and legal arguments to soundly demonstrate to the international community that Bolivia must return to the Pacific with sovereignty.
Also keeping a close eye on legal proceedings, Chile's Michelle Bachelet. Determined not to give in, she believes Santiago will win the argument.
It's important to remain calm because our delegation in The Hague is working well. As a first recourse, we're outlining our preliminary objection. I'm sure we're going to have a solid defense with very convincing legal arguments.
Chile, in practice, currently gives Bolivia nearly free ocean access. However, La Paz is determined to secure a corridor of sovereign territory for its natural gas exports currently passing by Brazil and Argentina. Bolivia, prior to the 1880s, had sea access, which it lost in the War of the Pacific that ended in 1883. It has been landlocked since. Santiago argues a subsequent treaty decided the question. It is not for The Hague to make a ruling.
Whether Bolivia has a right to sovereign access to the Pacific is a matter that was settled in and governed by the 1904 peace treaty. That matter is therefore outside the court's jurisdiction.
Bolivia's push is helped by a precedent. The court ruled in favor of Peru's demand for territorial waters from Chile last year, while Evo Morales is making resolution of the conflict a matter of national pride and saying the whole world supports a peaceful solution. Chile is not budging an inch.
Next, it's been billed as a project of the century. Once completed, the Nicaragua Canal will measure 3 times the Panama Canal and should ease interoceanic traffic. But the $50 billion project has been heavily criticised. The construction will be run by a Chinese multimillionaire whose company secured a concession that critics say undermines Nicaragua's sovereignty. Well, what's more, the environmental impact could be dramatic.
He's here with us, our brother Wang Ying.
Under the spotlight, the scene looks picture perfect as Nicaragua's President Ortega rolls out the red carpet for millionaire Wang Jing.
With this project, we'll change the world, and we'll be able to bring joy and happiness to the inhabitants of the entire planet.
But with the ceremony over, criticism started gushing in. Leading the way have been objections from environmentalists. The canal will cut through Lake Nicaragua, the biggest body of fresh water in Latin America.
We have to excavate millions and millions of tons of sediments, mainly mud and sand. And that means that the water quality, the drinking quality, will be lost.
Thousands of fishermen and farmers depend on the lake, and the canal will displace 25,000 people who live along its route.
We've been living here for about 30 years. That's how old I am. I'm from this village, so that's why we're fighting, so we don't lose it.
The contract between Nicaragua and Wang Jing's company, HK&D, says the land will be bought at its registered price. That's just 10% of the real market value. Yet there was no referendum about the project. Nuris and local residents have been protesting as the tensions escalate around them. It's been 3 months since the kids here went to school.
The government's always tried to manipulate teachers to get them to talk about the canal. It's not education anymore. It's a way of indirectly threatening parents to get them to sign papers agreeing that the canal will be of great benefit to the country.
That benefit has been thrown into doubt since HK&D secured a 50-year concession for the canal with the option to renew for another 50. And not 1 cent of the profits collected from ships passing through will reach the state's coffers. But still, the government insists that an economic miracle will come true.
A great majority believe that the canal will be the realization of a dream from centuries ago, because it will generate jobs, it will allow us to reduce poverty and improve health, education and infrastructure. It will also improve competition within businesses and turn Nicaragua into a land of opportunity.
President Ortega has been accused of authoritarianism and of betraying Nicaragua's sovereignty. Dora Diaz has formed a coalition of parties against the canal. According to her, HK&D will struggle to secure investors to fund the construction. But what counts is that the company already has the signed concession.
I've always believed that the canal project is a dark project that covers 2 things. Firstly, a massive expropriation of valuable lands that are in the hands of the country folk, and secondly, the development of an unknown number of private projects that are touristic and commercial.
It's on this virgin Pacific coast where the mouth of the canal will soon be built, surrounded by a free trade zone complete with a highway and a railway. The Great Canal, a chance for the poorest country in the Americas to progress, or a terrible environmental and social mistake. Certain to cut the country in 2, it's already dividing it before the first machines even hit the ground.
And finally, the biggest boxing match in US history may be over, but Manny Pacquiao has now been hit with legal proceedings. 2 people in Nevada have filed a lawsuit against the boxer, alleging he defrauded ticket buyers, television viewers and gamblers by failing to disclose a pre-fight shoulder injury that was ahead of his fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. The details with Ketivan Gorgestani.
It's an injury that could land him in jail.
Not really 100%, totally 100%.
Barely an hour after Manny Pacquiao lost the so-called fight of the century, he announced his performance had been hampered by an old injury to his right shoulder. An injury so bad he'll have to undergo surgery that will sideline him for at least 9 months.
I probably wouldn't have cleared him to fight for a lot of reasons. One being his own protection. But 2, I don't think he can be anywhere close to the normal fighter with this type of injury.
Pacquiao is accused of perjuring himself, risking several years in jail and a hefty fine for checking the no box on the pre-fight medical form for a question about whether he had a shoulder injury. Nevada boxing officials only found out about it 2 hours before the fight when Pacquiao's handlers unsuccessfully sought permission for an anti-inflammatory injection. Instead of the fight of the century between 2 boxers in top shape, fans got a one-armed Pacquiao who could only land 18 right jabs in 12 rounds. The injury was kept from the public, those who paid $100 to watch the fight on TV, those who spent thousands of dollars to see it live, and those who bet money on Pacquiao. Disgruntled fans were now suing the Filipino fighter for violating Nevada's Deceptive Trade Practices Act. They're seeking about $5 million in damages, a drop in the ocean compared to the estimated $100 million Pacquiao made by simply taking part in the historic fight.
Well, that's it for this week. We do hope to see you again next week. Do stay tuned to France 24.